Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is one I know so many of you are going to feel in your bones. Literally, like we're talking about how the body remembers, but it can also heal. It's one thing to understand that our trauma intellectually, but it's a whole different journey to actually feel it, process it, and release it from our bodies. And I couldn't think of a better person to guide us through this conversation. Her name is Lisa Broberg. Lisa is a functional medicine nurse and transformational health coach who helps women reconnect with their bodies and realign with their natural healing rhythms. She blends science and somatic practices, mindset work, and lifestyle changes to help women heal from the inside out. So, if you have ever felt disconnected from your body, stuck in old patterns, or like you're carrying emotional weight you can't quietly name, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
How's your day so far?
It's going well. Thank
It's
you.
going amazing. So, Lisa, I always love hearing why behind someone's work. Can you share about what brought you into this path of functional medicine and transformational coaching? Like, tell us your story.
Okay, so I will try to be concise because there's so many angles. So I've been a nurse now for 15 years, and about 3 years ago, I made the move away from traditional nursing. I became certified in functional medicine health coaching through the Institute of Functional Medicine, FMCA. And the way I got there was it started my own journey really began as a teenager. I internalized a lot of my feelings and a lot of my emotions. I've always been told I'm too sensitive, that kind of thing. And so I would internalize, and as a teenager, developed an eating disorder. And it was a very private battle that I faced, and wasn't really an option for me to seek help under my family's support. So the way that I was able to find help at the time was once I got into college, I went to the health services center at my university, and that's when I began to go through therapy. I was in nursing school, healing from my eating disorder at some point, coming out of my eating disorder. And then, this long history of what I now recognize was nervous system dysfunction and anxiety and, kind of self-soothing and coping in unhealthy ways. I didn't realize at the time, but I was kind of jumping from one coping mechanism to another and never really actually feeling and allowing those emotions to release. And so as I became a nurse and I started working, my first job was in spinal cord injury. It was a very heavy role, physically and emotionally, watching people's lives transform, and not the way that they want them to transform. Like they're now living completely different lives for the rest of their life, and their families are adjusting, and being around that like 40 hours a week, and just it started to really weigh on me, and so now I had even more stress, and at the time wasn't able to access the healthy ways that I had started. I would go hiking and I'd hang out with friends and, do things that brought me joy. But now I'm working in a hospital on swing shift when now it's like an opposite schedule. So I couldn't access those things the way I once could. And everything was just compounding. And I started getting anxiety attacks and chest pain and, like just feeling like the impending sense of doom. And then I started having pain in my body. Some of it was related to injuries, some of it was not. And it was interesting how I noticed that like the pain would be worse when I was stressed out. And so anyway, then I switched settings. I was working in some other areas, a different hospital. And then I became a mom.
Wow.
Then as a mother, if you're a mother, you know that mama bear protection, innate, like you fear the world for your baby and you want nothing to touch your baby. You want to protect them with every ounce of your being. And for me, it was I knew that it was partly this natural sense, but also um, it was becoming a bit of an obsession for me. And I now my anxiety was taken to another level, and I developed OCD. And it wasn't until I was about 4.5 years into my motherhood journey after my second was born that we were in the middle of a pandemic. I was working as a nurse and in California where everything was very, very strict and there was a lot of fear, more so I feel like than the rest of the country from what I've heard from other people and other nurses. And, I mean, it's like nurses working in any healthcare professional during the pandemic, it was very, very exponentially stressful for all of us. And my husband got COVID in November of 2020. This is at the peak of all of it. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen to him. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. Was I sick? Was I breathing onto my children? Are they going to get sick? Like, it was just like everything was coming to a head. And at this point I was having anxiety attacks like weekly, where to the point where I'm like, I'm not even going to the ER anymore because I already know it's just, anxiety. What am I going to do? Like, they're just giving me Ativan. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't even take away the chest pain. Like, I know it's stress, but like, they're telling me to manage my stress better. What does that mean? And so, when my husband got out of quarantine, a couple days after I had cooked dinner, I was cleaning up, walking into the living room with my cold IPA I don't drink alcohol anymore. But I was, about to have my beer and chill out for the rest of the night. And all of a sudden I just, like, the worst panic attack I'd experienced just came over me, and tunnel vision, muffled hearing, seeing spots and stars, and shaking uncontrollably, and chest pain, and just like this feeling of just like dread and just lack of control. And it lasted for almost an hour. I had, I laid down, put my feet up, because I'm a nurse, I had all the things. So I had my husband get me my tools, and I was checking my blood pressure and my heart rate and my oxygen and all that stuff. And it was definitely like, it was a very high heart rate, very, elevated blood pressure, but it was not like anything that, I knew it was anxiety. And this was where my body was just telling me, like, we're done here. Like, something needs to change. And at that time I hadn't been in therapy. And so I that night I had been looking at therapists. I just hadn't taken the initiative to actually reach out. And so I already had some numbers on hand, reached out, got in contact with them, made an appointment, called my primary, who was a DO, which is an osteopath. So it's relatively holistic in the conventional setting. And what ended up happening was he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to test for. He just offered me, and he was, he tried, but he's just not trained to know what to do. And so he offered me Zoloft. I took it because honestly, at that point, something I didn't mention is that, throughout all of that, those last few months, I was, especially those few weeks, I was at a very low point where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, if it weren't for my children and my husband, like, I would never intentionally do anything, but if something happened, and so, it was just a very dark time for me. And I knew that, it was, I knew there was something wrong and I couldn't get any answers. And, so at that time I had been hearing about functional medicine, and I was speaking to my aunt, who is kind of a mentor to me, and she's in the holistic wellness space. And she told me to look into functional medicine for myself. And so I did. And they drew 23 vials of blood. I remember I'm like, this is more than when I was pregnant. Like when you're pregnant, they draw so many vials. Anyway, and they took a very thorough history. I mean, I'm talking like, were you breastfed and for how long were you breastfed? And just so many things you would never think to ask. And now I understand why. But they explained to me after they took my blood, took my history, went over all of the major milestones in my life, and they explained to me that there's a reason why you're feeling this way. You are experiencing adrenal burnout. You have no more left in your tank. Your cortisol is shot. You're overstressed. You haven't recovered from your pregnancies. You have all of these they explained everything. My gut health was off, so I'm not absorbing my nutrients. All of these things that made perfect sense that I couldn't get answers from in the conventional setting. And even when I tried to talk to some of the brilliant doctors that I worked with, they couldn't tell me, And so finally I'm getting answers, and it was like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is how people are supposed to be served in caring for their health. And so now I'm going into work, and at the time I was in primary care, going to work every day, and knowing what I'm learning, and not being able to share it because I had to endorse what my employer wanted me to say, and I couldn't take the time to explain nutrition or lifestyle or stress management or mindfulness or anything that people need to know and learn and adapt to their lifestyle. I couldn't talk about that. I didn't have time to talk about that. I didn't have the resources. And so I just started feeling really out of alignment and like I was lying every day because I knew better, but I couldn't share. And people were telling me, like, don't give me another pill. Don't tell the doctor. Tell them I don't want another pill. I don't want to see a specialist. I just want to know what's wrong with me. Like, how do I fix this? Right. And I felt them. So I felt that, and so with my husband's support, I went back to school, and that's when I got certified in functional medicine health coaching. And I knew that I was going to take a different route. And so now, having gone through for the last 5 years, having gone through that deeper layers of healing, and I came into somatic awareness and just being in my body after most of my life being in my head, and now I'm able to be in my body, and it's just it's changed my life, so I continue to learn and expand and bring in new holistic approaches, and so everything I do is there's science behind everything I do from a functional medicine perspective. It's very fundamentally based in science. Like, for some reason, people think functional medicine is like woo-woo or holistic, like in a negative way, and they don't understand that it's actually fundamental science. Like, there's evidence behind it all. It's just
So sorry, but I'm gonna ask you my next question.
yeah.
Okay, because this is gonna tie into your functional medicine and what you're doing. So Lisa, you went through a lot. And I would say thank you for sharing on what you went through, from eating disorder to being a nurse. And then you went into functional medicine because you felt like you did not get the answers. And so many of us women, we do not know the answers,
Right.
Especially when we go to medical professionals and doctors who are supposed to help us, and nurses, but they can't. Was there a moment in your own healing where you realized, oh, wow, my body's been holding onto this for years? Was it during when you were hospitalized or when you were in the emergency room? Or was it like later, like someone told you, hey, you've been holding, you have adrenal fatigue, you have been stressed. So when did you have that realization?
Honestly, when I was having that panic attack, like the worst one that I've ever had, there was like a whisper, like, no more. Like I sensed that, like, this is it. We can't do this anymore, and there was just an innate knowing that my body was speaking to me, but I didn't know what else to do, right? And so, and then at first, when I had that appointment with my functional medicine practitioner, where they gave me answers, it everything clicked. It felt like, and then getting into it more and more, working with a coach myself and working with more and more coaches over the years, and going through all these different layers of mind, body, spirit, emotions. We have all these different bodies that people don't want to acknowledge because sometimes there's not science behind it, but there's also experience that you can't deny. So, honestly, I've had years and years and years of talk therapy, and it wasn't until I started doing somatic work that
Mhm.
it really shifted for me, where I was realizing that the muscular tension that I was feeling was tied to areas in my body that were holding all of these deep-seated emotions that are tied to my belief systems, my beliefs about myself, about the world, and that were also correlating with what I was experiencing in my body too, like, and how it's all connected. Like the gut is also connected to our brain. There's a gut brain connection, right? And
Yeah.
it's all connected. And in those sessions with my coaches, moving through the body, and it's a release. Like there's a release where they teach, you're taught how to identify what is there, and how to identify what it's trying to share with you, and then how to reframe and rewrite your story for your truth. And it's an experience that me explaining it doesn't do it justice. It has to really be experienced for you to feel the power behind it. So,
Got it.
yeah.
So, okay, what about, so many women, we hear a lot about how the body keeps a score, and there's a book
Mm-hmm.
about it too.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look or feel like for women living it day to day? For you, it was panic attacks and you felt the chest pain. For me, it's probably neck aches all the time. What do you experience with your clients? Like, how do they hold on to these emotions in their body, but it's showing up as physical symptoms?
Okay, so one thing I see all the time is women with hypothyroidism. I
Mm-hmm.
work with a lot of that. And even just yesterday, I had a call with a client. So it's really interesting when you think about the chakra system and how it correlates to our physical body. And a lot of women that are experiencing hypothyroidism or any kind of thyroid problem tend to have, and this came out in our session just yesterday, and it's happened so many times, they're feeling unheard. They're unable to express themselves. They're unable to say what they want to say, how they want to say it. They don't know how to communicate effectively. They maybe feel like they're not acknowledged and they're not important and they're lacking self-worth. And so it's really interesting how many women who deal with the hypothyroidism tend to share that about their voice.
Yeah, I have felt that also in my practice, especially so many women with hypothyroidism. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just say that they just can't speak their truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Wow. Yeah. So you're absolutely like right on because this is what happens to so many of my clients too. So that's one. What else? What about how do you feel like trauma show up in their body in ways like we may not even realize?
Yeah. So one thing is when you've been living in a chronic state of fight or flight, and a lot of people, when we talk about this survival mode, um, a lot of people don't talk about the later stages of that in burnout, which is where I was at. So when you are in a burnout phase, you no longer have it in you to flee or to fight. your body has given up, and your body's, the way that your body sees it, you have a better chance of surviving by playing dead or giving in. And so if you're at the point where you have nothing left in your tank and you feel like you cannot come up for air, and you don't even know what makes you feel like you anymore, and you're in the depths of despair where you'd rather not even be here anymore, like, I'm not saying this is for everyone, but these are the kinds of things that you experience when you are at the end of survival mode, in freeze mode, right? And sometimes people get into fawning mode, where now it's another similar phase of freeze, where you're a people pleaser, and you just do whatever you need to do to be accepted, or to be welcomed, or to not be exiled, and to be included, and to not be, outcast. So you're not speaking your truth. You're not sharing your viewpoints. You're not, maybe you're acting out of integrity, or you're not able to stand up for yourself, and you're just giving in, right? And that's not necessarily anything wrong on your part. It's just that's kind of where you're at, and you don't have it in you to fight. And so the way that trauma, when we've lived in it for so long, we don't even recognize that it's dysfunctional, because it's become our new normal. And so oftentimes we will even people don't realize that a lot of the time when we seek out things that make us feel anxious, like crime shows or real crime podcasts or the news every day, or anything that is keeping us in a heightened state, is actually often a trauma response, because our body is seeking what it knows. And when it knows chaos, and when it knows to be tense, and to have that kind of response, that kind of excitement, that anxious excitement, when our body wants to keep things status quo. Because even if it's a state of hypersensitivity or a state of hyperarousal, if that's the status quo and that's what's known, then that is safe. And so anything other than that is unsafe, because that's the operating system it's been in for so long.
Yeah. So quietness and solitude and meditation and all that, it's considered unsafe, and they don't even seek out for those responses, right?
Right. And a lot of people that when they try to sit still, or they don't know what to do, and they start getting anxious when they're trying to meditate, because they're like, I can't, my mind's just going crazy. I don't know what to do. This isn't working for me. Right. And it's like, or they feel guilty, and they're like, this isn't doing anything, because they don't even know how to shift gears.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I love how you talk about reconnecting with our natural healing rhythm, which is, hey, you're in a state of chaos. That's all you know. That's all you're going to attract. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I also want to say thanks for being so vulnerable on the show about when you were talking about your story, because that tells us that, hey, we all are going through this, and all of us are in this together. Mm-hmm. So what does that process really look like for someone who's been disconnected from their bodies, and now they really want to start connecting? But like you mentioned, someone is sitting in meditation, can't meditate. They're like, oh my God, my mind is going in 20,000 directions. What would be the first step that you would recommend that person to even start with?
So part of this is setting expectations, first of all. So like when you've lived most of your life out of your body and up here in your mind, it's going to be challenging for you to be able to drop down and to recognize and to be able to sense that. So patience is key. And when you're doing these kinds of things and you want to bring more body awareness, that's really where it's at, is when you feel triggered or you feel activated, for a different term, because maybe trigger's a little too extreme for people. But when you feel activated, like you are now extra stressed, or something has set you off where now you're in a spiral in your mind about all the things that are going wrong, or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
If you can take a moment to identify what that circumstance was and try to identify, just being aware of what that was and paying attention to where you're most feeling it in your body. And that's the first step, is just awareness. Because when you can start to identify that and then continue to identify patterns, then you can start working on the beliefs around it too. Because usually it's triggering a belief about yourself or the world or whatever that's bringing up an emotion inside, a feeling in your body that's reawakening, and it's being reactivated, and it's usually a pattern, and people tend to have the same areas in their body because that's where the emotions tend to take root. And so when you're reactivated in the moment, identifying in your body what it is, what thoughts you're thinking, and what I mean by that is, what is that inner monologue or dialogue saying? Like, what are the thoughts that you're experiencing right now? What are you telling yourself? Because that's going to show you what your ego is trying to do and trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
So there's a process to it, but the awareness piece is really the first thing.
Yeah. So basically setting the right expectations, and that it's not going to happen overnight. You
Yeah.
need to be patient about it, building awareness of what's really happening, and then checking in with your thoughts or your inner monologue or your self-critic that's probably talking back to you.
It's really like paying attention.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to distract yourself in the moment, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the thing a lot of
Exactly.
us do, is that we start to feel anxious. We start to, get in the thick of it, and then we want to get out of it. So we turn the TV on, or we call someone, or we go shopping, or we whatever, right?
Or we
But
numb ourselves.
we numb ourselves. We distract. And so instead of doing that, go inward and be curious and ask yourself, what am I experiencing? What is going on?
I love that. I love that. So can you give us an example? Because you mentioned, functional medicine, and then you're helping your clients with somatic practices. So can you give us an example on how those tools will help women heal from trauma on a deeper level, especially awareness, being curious, and now how can we bring in some somatic practices within?
Yeah. So it all goes hand in hand, and it's tackling different layers.
Yeah.
Right. So when I bring in functional medicine, that's usually at the very beginning, when I first start to work with people, where we look at their labs and we see how it correlates to what they're experiencing. And oftentimes there's hormonal issues, a lot of the time, and pretty much all of the time. I can't say 100%, but I would say a large majority. Their detox pathways are impacted. And what I mean by that is that their body is toxic and not able to purge. It's not able to keep up with their lifestyle. So whatever it is in their lifestyle, and which is modern lifestyle for everyone pretty much, unless you're like super conscious, most people are unknowingly impacting their liver and or their kidneys. There's lots of different things there's our lungs, our skin, our lymphatic system. They're all ways that our body is able to get rid of toxins. But because of the nature of our modern life, we are not able to, our natural biology is not able to keep up with modern times. So
Can I ask you one question as
Yeah.
you're speaking about the detox pathways? If you can really just speak on that, because that
Yeah.
will really help women, especially, they have liver stagnation, especially in TCM, or they may have like acne issues,
Oh my God.
obesity,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, hyperthyroid, like all of this is in my client base. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and I keep talking about that, but I would love for you to touch base on how can they just detox first?
So when I talk about detox, I'm not talking about like you drink a gallon of something and
Yeah.
no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about adopting lifestyle shifts that support your body's ability to detoxify itself on a regular basis so that you are freeing up your bandwidth and you are able to keep up. And that often means that taking inventory of what you're bringing into your experience. And so that means food, that means water, that means personal care products, it means what you're cleaning your home with. And so I actually I have a free guide on it to just get people started that people can download on my website. And
We will add it to the show notes for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah. And so that will walk them through. And I know that it can be really overwhelming, but take it one step at a time. And even just beginning with your water, because we are 60% water and we're drinking water every day. It is so critical people don't realize how much is in tap water. And so a lot of people use Brita. Brita's not going to cut it because there's pharmaceuticals and there's tons of things in the water that Brita will not filter out. So just I would say if one thing, like look at your water, because there's a lot there that is going to affect your hormones. It's going to affect your liver and your kidneys. And so what a lot of people also don't realize that our hormones are directly impacted by our kidneys. By our liver. So when our liver is stagnant or sluggish, and when it's not able to, and that can be from, of course, everybody thinks of alcohol. Yeah, alcohol is one of them, but sugar is a huge one. And another thing is pesticides. So those are the top three, in my opinion, but then also there's inflammatory oils. There's like so many things that impact our liver's ability to detoxify. And there's so much that happens in the liver that people don't realize when it comes to hormones, that when our liver is too preoccupied with trying to filter things out, it's not going to have the bandwidth to convert the necessary components into what should become hormones. Yeah. So when we have high degrees of toxicity in our body that our liver is it's fighting so hard to keep up with, and it's not able to convert certain molecules into what's supposed to become our hormones by just starting to detoxify and removing the burden off our liver, and then also replenishing with what supports the liver's ability to detoxify, that is going to support our hormone regulation. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
it's a very blanket explanation, but in a nutshell, I think they undervalue the liver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So water, sugar, pesticides, inflammatory oils, so that they have to basically work on detoxifying their liver. What else can they do when it comes to really healing the body? And you were talking about detox pathways, but then was there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
So movement in general, even if you get out for a walk, move your body, because the lymphatic system does not have a pump. Whereas, our circulation has the heart to pump everything through, but our lymphatic system, which is all the lymph nodes and it's parallel to all of our veins and arteries, but it does not have a pump to move things through. So it relies on movement to purge things out of our system. So just moving, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just gentle movement, getting up, and just moving. There's sweat is a huge one. So even if that means taking a warm bath with some Epsom salt, and Epsom salt and when I take baths personally, I add Epsom salt, and I also add pink Himalayan salt, because there's minerals in there, or even just a good quality sea salt. There's so many minerals that are missing from table salt that anyway, it helps to detoxify the body, and also the heat helps to purge toxins too. So movement, hydration, obviously. Like, I mean, I mentioned water as one of the things to work on detoxifying, but increasing your water intake, because that will flush things through. Most people are not hitting their water intake what they should be. So in general, at a minimum, women should be taking in about 2.5 liters per day, which is, yeah, that's only 5 plastic bottles of water. So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
not that much, but a
Exactly.
lot of people are not hitting that. And men should be 3.5 liters. That's minimum. If you're at higher elevation like me in Colorado, it's going to be more because it dries you out. So you need a little bit more. But hydration is really important for detox because it's essentially keeping everything flowing. It's like a lubricant in your body. And so if you're not getting enough water, there's not enough movement. It's going to support the movement of all that stuff through. And it also
Got it.
helps flush the kidneys and all of that too. So,
So I have a question on that because I have because most of our audience is women, survivors of trauma, violence, and assault, and they have a lot of trauma in the womb space. They may suffer from endometriosis,
yeah,
adenomyosis, fertility issues, period pain issues. What
yeah.
recommendations can you give them to really work on healing those conditions? At least just like a start.
Oh, yeah. Detoxification too, because a lot of those are estrogen dominant, meaning that in the liver's responsible for purging estrogen. And when the liver's too sluggish, it will recycle the estrogen, and then you get higher estrogen levels. And a lot of the time that's related to PCOS. So prioritizing detoxification. And of course, like everything is personalized when I work with someone. So like, I don't want to
Yeah.
say anything that's, I don't want people to think that it's a one for all, because it is very individualized. But a lot of the time, when we look at the like the polycystic ovarian, like PCOS, when you look at it, a majority is estrogen dominant, and that has to do with the liver, and it has to do with toxic body burden. So the other thing that's really interesting to mention, though, again, kind of going back to how it correlates with the chakras, and in that area, when they have a specific kind of trauma that relates to their safety and security, a lot of the time there are very deep-seated emotions that have yet to be properly processed in that area.
I love how
So,
you brought that up. Yeah, safety and security, because that is the underlying issue for all of them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the, down there, in the root chakra, and in the not the root, but the sacral chakra, where that's our creation. That's the womb space. It's our creativity. Also, when we have been, for people, trauma survivors that have been made to stay quiet, or made to feel shame around whatever they experienced, part of that emotion down there in that space can be, a lot of the time it's calling for creative expression, very similar to the throat area. So if there's something that they can do to just try to, they don't even know what to say or whatever, like art or dance or something to bring out some creative energy to help to just kind of like stimulate that kind of movement. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you have stored trauma in your womb space, if you move your body, especially your hips, your pelvis area,
yeah.
your pelvic floor area, your lower back, at least you will release something just through movement. And then there are other exercises that they could do. So I love that. And I love how you touched base on estrogen is like the other issue also.
Yeah.
And that's why we need the liver to be detoxified. So that's a perfect full circle. Like you're going back to work on your detoxification. You can hopefully hopefully get onto a healing journey. So if
Mhm.
someone's listening and thinking, like, that's me, I've been a trauma survivor, it's been draining for me, I'm off balance or I'm disconnected, what other advice one advice that you could give them that they would feel like, all right, this is something I can do right away, like a simple practice maybe?
For the PCOS or
Oh, for anything that they just feel off balance, they feel like stressed, they
Mm,
feel
okay.
burnt out. What is the one simple thing other than movement that they could try practicing?
So I know that this sounds very simple,
Mhm.
but it's something that I do with all of my clients because it is so important is reconnecting to what brings you joy. So I have all my clients write a joy list. And so this could be a list of like anything that they loved to do at any time in their lives. So going back, if they can remember their childhood, because I know a lot of trauma survivors don't have great recollection of those memories, depending on, a lot of different factors. But if they can remember as a child what brought them joy, start there and kind of go through your life and remember like what comes to mind for you that you loved doing that. Like, oh my gosh, I had this one time where I did this. And, like anything that lights you up, that makes you feel alive, that makes you feel like you are in your essence. Like, this is me. This is my spirit. This is what makes me feel, like Lisa, right? Like whatever it makes you feel like you. And write all of it down, and you can categorize it however you want to. You can make it like some people do it by like free or like $0 to $20 or whatever. Some people do it like every day, every week, every month. You can categorize it however you want to categorize it, but like get it into a list and put it on your phone or somewhere that you can easily access it, and try to do one of those. Like I would try to do one of those once a week to start, because I know it can be overwhelming trying to do it every day. That's too much. But just
Mhm.
start bringing that more into your experience, and try to, like, even if it's like having coffee on your patio in the morning when the sun's, coming up. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just something that makes you feel connected to yourself. Maybe it's walking your dog. If you really love walking your dog, and like for me, my dog doesn't need to be walked because he's small and he gets enough exercise, but like I love walking my dog. Like I don't need to walk him because he's got free roam. But so whatever it is, like, or
Yeah.
having coffee with a friend or calling a friend or taking a hot bath or whatever it is, like just, maybe getting out your coloring books, like, I don't know, just something that like really makes you feel connected to yourself. Because the more you do that, then the more you will start to reconnect with yourself, and then other things will open up for you.
That's beautiful. And that brings me to my last question, Lisa. What is the one statement that you would tell your younger self today if she was right in front of you?
Oh, I would tell her that there's nothing wrong with you, and that you are loved and you are worthy.
So, so beautiful. Thanks
Yeah.
so much, Lisa. We loved having you here. Where can our listeners find you?
I am on Instagram at livewell.lisa. I'm on Facebook at livewell.lisa. And my website is Omni, that's OMNI, livewell.com. And yeah, that's pretty
And
much it.
And I'm also going to add her free guide that she mentioned on our show notes. Thank you so much, Lisa. We loved having you on our show. And to all of our listeners, always remember metamorphosis, not medication, and namaste.